Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to cover how to connect to MySQL database using PHP. And so you can see I'm using XAMPP here. I'm just going to work off the control panel. So if you have XAMPP, you should be probably doing it like this. I'm going to click on the admin button next to MySQL. What this is going to do is going to kick me over to PHP My Admin. Now, if you are working with a live host, you probably have this tool available to you or something similar. It's just your job to find it. I mean, if you have a free host or something, you might not. But if you're paying for hosting, you probably have this tool, and it's just your job to find it. And so really, I said we're going to connect to a database. We need to create a database first. I mean, I've got some over here, but let's create one. So I'm going to click on the Databases tab, and we'll call it TestDB. Right? Basic as it gets. I'm just going to go with the default collation, which is basically how the physical data is represented on disk. So I create that, and now I've got a database called TestDB. Now I can connect to this database. Now, if I was really doing something, I would set up users and passwords and everything like that. But I really want to talk about XAMPP for a second here. XAMPP, to say that security is an afterthought is not really accurate. XAMPP has disabled every security which it can. So when you connect to a database, you could have a username and a password. The default username and password for the super user is root and no password. So that's relevant because I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a connect script. So here I am in Notepad++. I'm going to write a little PHP here, just opening and closing tags. Nothing yet. So really there's three variables which we're going to be concerned about. The first one is user. Now, as I said, in XAMPP, it's just root. That's the username. You can create more. If you have a live website, it's not going to be root, right? It'd be a big mistake if you really had username of root. The other thing is going to be the password, and that is literally just blank. And so in XAMPP, they've disabled everything they can disable just to get you up and running and testing your site. You can adjust these things, but by default, they're not there. And the last variable is just the name of the database. Mine was TestDB. You're seeing a little PHP syntax here. It's not the friendliest stuff in the world, but that's what it looks like. And really, so the magic part here is just one line. And so this connection is very well going to be used multiple times. So I'm going to store it in a variable such as this. And really what I want to do is I want to create a new MySQLi, and then here's the function, and I'm going to call that function. So that function takes 4 arguments the way I'm going to use it. The first one is localhost. Now this is going to work on XAMPP. This would likely work on a web server as well. It might seem like it would only work on my computer because I'm running XAMPP, but that's not really the case. What that really means is that the MySQL server is on the same server as Apache. And it is in some cases. If it's not, you might have to do some kind of an absolute link right there. The next piece of information is the username, and the last is the password, and the database. And so you can see why we used variables here, because if you have a real website out there, just substitute whatever your username is, substitute whatever your password is. If you don't know what that is, check your email. That's typically like as soon as you pay for something, you get an email with all these usernames and passwords, and it's probably in there, or get a hold of support. That in theory should work, but it's good practice to write and we're going to call a function called die. Right? So what die means is if this piece right here, if the left hand of this expression doesn't go well, for some reason I have a syntax error, then it's going to die. And die just terminates the program right there, and it spits out a message like unable to connect. It'll spit out whatever I tell it to spit out. And so it's either going to be successful or it's going to die. And at this point, I think it's time to save my file. I'm going to call it connect.php. Notice the file extension. It's going to yell at me because I already have one. I just tried to make this video a minute ago, but the audio didn't work. I think I replaced it, and let's see if it works. So I'm going to run it. Nothing happens. Nothing should happen because I need to run it through the local host. Right? PHP is not going to be interpreted if I don't. Now I run it through localhost, and nothing happens. That's a little concerning. So I recall what this does. This either creates a connection or it fails. There's no output, so it's good practice to just do a little echo down here, and my echo is going to say like great work, right? A little enthusiasm there. And so that might look like it would happen every time, but in theory, it's either going to successfully create the connection, or die, right? And in the case that it dies, it's never going to get to this line because it just stops right there. So I'll save this, and you'll see why I did it in a minute. And so I refresh, and great work, right? The implication that it didn't die and I didn't get any warnings, so it probably worked. So let's see what it looks like. Let's say the user did not know a password. All right, I save that, I refresh, and see, not so great work. I still get the great work because it didn't technically die. I just access denied. So it's a warning. Warnings aren't a complete failure. Warnings are just bad, and you should address them. If it's kind of sticking out to you, you're thinking, my gosh, that seems kind of weird that my password is just in plain text. Well, it is, and there's all kinds of things you can do to make that a less difficult situation, or right, I mean, you can do a better job than what we're doing here, but in theory all you got to do is substitute in the values that you want. And so at this point you should be able to connect to your database. So this is how it is by default in XAMPP. If you want to create users, or you've got a live website with some real usernames and passwords, all you got to do is substitute. That's the kind of beauty of writing it out like this. You should be up and running at this point. From here you can actually do some database things like query your database, and just connecting is nothing, but really this is something that you could get hung up on. So now at this point you can connect, and from there you can create some tables and do some meaningful things. Thanks for watching.